just going to talk about dev support. This is specifically, I specifically think about Days Gone as like a an example. But do you have any more by any chance where, I don't know, a game series just sort of did not continue because no support at launch?
Yes, I've got plenty.
You got plenty.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I say I've got plenty, and I can think of like maybe one or two off the top of my head. I know of plenty.
Well, shit. Yeah. I mean, if you want to talk about that too, like I think that's something that you can carry a little bit more than me because I don't know a bunch of them. I know some projects that may have failed because of just lifetime support, but yeah, fuck it, we can go from there, man.
Right. Well, we'll cover it as we get to it.
And if you need me to edit, we got a flash drive now. And when's your quarantine ending?
I got tested the 15th, so I'm gonna go get tested again the 26th because the 25th is a Sunday. I don't know if they'll be doing it on that day or whatever, but whatever. I'll just go on that Monday. But hey, what's going on, everybody? Immersive Arcade, Anubis, and Vicious TV. We are going to be talking about the shit that you just heard us talking about. Obviously, as my good buddy just informed everyone, I have COVID. I don't sound like it, but I do.
We were live?
Yeah, we are. No, we are now. It's the reason why I haven't been uploading anything, or it's part of the reason, rather. One of the series that I'm doing is actually on my Xbox, which my friend here jinxed to death. So, nah, but my Xbox is down, and I haven't had the motivation to upload anything else. But that's not what this is about. We're talking about dev support, and to start off with, we're talking about dev support and why it affects, or how it affects, rather, projects. We'll say that because it's not just games.
Yeah, I'm sure it falls under all sorts of things, but the main thing that I thought about recently when it comes to that subject was Days Gone. I guess one of the lead devs has said that, well, if you want games that you like to sort of flourish and to get sequels, you should support them, when they're launched at full price. A lot of people are taking that like a really hard way. They're taking it in a sense of where they think that he's saying, don't wait for a sale ever, don't be cheap, buy at full price. And I don't think that's what he meant.
No.
I get what he means because Days Gone came out April 2019.
Yep.
If I understand that correctly. And I had every intention of getting it. And I'll tell you right now, I'll be the first to tell you, I didn't get it when that game came out. And I still haven't gotten it even though it's free. I have an interest in it, but it's sort of a double-edged sword. Like, if it was like $30 about a month ago, I would have probably gotten it, Right. But it's free. It became free rather quickly. And it became free, so there's no way that you can really like support it by paying for it now because Sony just sort of was like, oh, fuck it, let's make it free and let's roll it into our PS5 package, which I think is a good idea. But now they're not going to make a sequel because they think that most of us who got the game and downloaded it see the game as just something that you should just get for free. Like it's not something that you should pay full price for. Nubis, what do you think about all this?
I think he's right with what he said. Like you said, I think people are taking what he said the wrong way, but I think he's absolutely correct. I got the game day one,
right?
And I love it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like people and their criticism, it starts off really slow, yada yada. That's fine. It kind of did. But the game really did open up later on, and it really is a great game, even like in its slow moments.
Final Fantasy VII starts off slow.
It does, but that's a different ballpark altogether. You know that game has a cult following, an established cult following, and it's Final Fantasy in general. You know, like Final Fantasy VII had its following before 7, so that's I don't think you can accurately compare the two, if that makes sense.
No, I get what you're saying. You're saying because Days Gone is a new IP, and 7 like that comes from the established Final Fantasy series. I understand what you mean. It's just I'm giving those examples out for games for people that you know they want to say a new IP is slow, but then you got people who are jumping into things for the very first time. Like Final Fantasy VII was the first Final Fantasy game I got.
Right.
And you know, you could say that that's slow, and you could say other things are slow. I could say Metal Gear Solid starts off slow. I could say a whole bunch of shit that's slow. That doesn't mean that it's going to be a bad game.
Right.
But if that's your overarching concern over the game, I think that's a bit unfair. Days Gone, I still want to try it, but I kind of don't want to now because you know, this is one of those things where I partially have to like look at Japanese development and how they Japanese publishers and how they look at games because Sony, not just Sony, but Bandai Namco, for example, with Tekken Tag 2, that game didn't sell as much as they wanted it to. And I've mentioned this a million times. It sold like sub 2 million within a year, and that just wasn't enough for them. Even though Tekken had sold like over 40 million copies over the course of how many games was it at that point? Over the course of about 7 games, not including Tag 2. So, you know, they really want their money. They want the return when they publish a game in certain scenarios. And I think this is one of those scenarios that sort of suffers from it because they said that Days Gone was profitable, but it still didn't sell enough and it wasn't supported enough.
It wasn't what they thought it was going to be.
Yeah. And that's a shame. I wish it was different because a lot of people are in an uproar about it. There's fans that are really sad about it. I've seen this one guy, and I don't care about name drops. Have you ever seen the Two Best Friends play?
I've seen them once or twice, yeah.
Yeah, see, I used to be pretty big into their videos, and I noticed that both of them are two big chuffs, you know, and you know that they had broke up. And Pat yesterday on Twitter said that, you know, for all this brouhaha about the devs saying that you need to support the game, is the game any good? He said that the gameplay looks mid, and I had tweeted on Twitter, of course, I said, the game looks mid in quotations. This is the type of talk that keeps games from getting the exposure that they need. They need more positive reinforcement when they do good work. Days Gone made a PS5 patch for the game. So it runs at 60 frames per second for the most part at either 2K or 4K, I forget what it was. And I think that's something that needs to be appreciated when we're talking about, you know, supporting a game.
Right.
Because not all devs are doing that. I'm still waiting on word for Last of Us Part 2 getting a patch of some sort because it's looking like they may not do the DLC for like the multiplayer and all that, I'm fine with. But
no, don't be fine with that. What we're going to talk about that, but go ahead. Keep
okay,
going.
Okay, we'll talk about that. I didn't know I was going to be running into an argument today.
No, but go ahead.
But you know, like what I was saying was, what's the team that made Days Gone? What's the name of that one more time?
Oh shit.
Man, that's tough.
It is tough because, man, let me look for that case.
Oh man, Ben Studio is their name actually.
Okay, good. Because I was gonna be looking for a hot minute because I bought it digitally, so I was never gonna find the case.
Oh my god. Oh man, the corona. This is what it does to you.
Man.
But yeah, I think that takes real gumption to do something like that because me and Corey had talked on a quarters episode about how Xbox has a smart delivery and how it's a good idea. Sony does not have smart delivery. Sony has devs go in and tinker with the games, which, in my opinion, it depends on the case, but it could be a bit better because they could actually optimize some shit rather than Xbox just sort of giving a game HDR and upscaling it. Um, but yeah, I really appreciate things like that. And if I were a fan, I'd be really sad right about now, you know? And it sucks that people are saying, well, the game wasn't that great to begin with. That's a shitty thing to say because now there's no way to give them feedback and them to like accept it because it's just never there's never going to be a Days Gone 2 from what it seems.
I feel like the same people who are saying, the game is mid, are like the same people who didn't like The Last of Us because of the reasons they didn't like The Last of Us. If I'm being honest with you. Like, I don't feel like they played the game past the slow bit, and I don't know, Young Metro probably don't trust them, so I don't trust them. You know what I mean? Like,
Man.
I don't know.
I don't know either, man. Like, you can't win with gamers. Blaze Blue Tag is a fighting game that I like. It combines 3 fighting game franchises that were produced by Arc System Works in one game. And the big to-do before this game came out was it was going to start out with a roster of 20 characters. Now, each franchise has at least 20 characters to begin with, I believe, on each respective game. And they didn't change the sprites all that much, really, if at all. So basically, it's a bunch of 2D sprites that look mismatched that were all together on, whatever stages that they have on the game that were from each game. So a lot of people felt like that they were getting a repackaged, game, and they had to pay full price for it. That game was going to have. They announced that they were going to have. I think it was either 20 characters. Yeah, they're going to have 20 DLC characters for the game, and people were freaking out. The game was going to be $50, and if you know anything about fighting games, a season pass is going to be about like what I want to say like $20 nowadays, $25. That game came out for $50 and had a $20 pass, making it $70, which is reasonable for a fighting game. That's basically what it boiled down to. Was it was $20 per character. I'm sorry, per character. It was $1 per character.
Right.
And a lot of people in the FGC sort of boycotted that game when they found out that there was going to be 20 DLC characters. And I feel like that game, there might not be another Blaze Blue Tag. I went through all of that just to tell you guys that, because the Japanese devs, I don't want to pigeonhole all Japanese devs, but they take sales seriously, and the game didn't sell too bad compared to its other titles. It actually sold pretty decently, but Japanese devs, when they get buzz like that, and when the first sales don't come through, they're like, man, we might not be able to produce this game again because who knows what will happen, Thankfully, it sold pretty decently, but a lot of people were buzzing around boycotting that game, and I just think that's a toxic culture to have in gaming in general. Like, stop boycotting games coming out. Like, if you don't want to get the game, don't make a big to-do about it. People who will want the game and will get the game as soon as they get the information that they desire. Right. And I think that that's a fair thing to say. Just shut the fuck up and let people enjoy things.
Right. I won't say to stop boycotting games before they come out because, some of them probably do deserve it, but I think that they should make more demos for games that are coming out. You know what I mean? Like Days Gone, that could have used the demo. Final Fantasy VII, it didn't really need one. I'm glad we got it, but I guarantee you that helped get attention for the game.
Yeah, especially that leak.
Yeah. Resident
I've never been
Evil
so hyped
Village.
in my life.
Was that?
Well, maybe I said I've never been so hyped in my life, except for
Right.
maybe one time.
I played that shit multiple times every day until that fucking game dropped.
Exactly.
Resident Evil Village, has multiple demos, which is, it's weird, but whatever. I'll play them.
What do you think about them? Like, isn't it like a limited release demo? Like, you can only play it once.
I don't know anything about it. All I know is that they did multiple demos recently, I guess. I don't even know when they dropped. I just know that they were going to do them. Mm-hmm. I haven't looked too much into it myself. It's probably something that I'll do today. If I get around to it, I've got to record, but excuse me.
Damn. You were saying?
No, I've got to do some recording for this today, but if I get around to it, I'll either play the demo today or tomorrow, sometime tonight.
Well, good luck with that. I kind of want to. Were you finished with that topic, or do you want to go into it a bit more?
I was just going to say, there's other games other than Days Gone that aren't getting sequels because of it. Astral Chain for Switch. I love that game. I was really hoping that instead of Scarlet Nexus, we would get an Astral Chain too. But that's not what happened. We got Scarlet Nexus, which it looks like a good game. I hope it's a good game, and hopefully it doesn't need a sequel because God knows we won't get one. But
I'm sorry, does Bamco make Scarlet Nexus? Astral Chain?
I think that was Platinum Games.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
But
unless they debbed it and it's being produced and published by Bamco.
I think that might have been the case. That's something else that I'll have to check.
Because it looks like a Bamco game. Like, that's typically how they look.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hell, man. I don't know, man. I just hate when... And you know what? Maybe saying to stop the boycotting is, a little rough, but I think that you should be well informed and you should not misinform others based off of your own personal vices.
Right.
Maybe not vices, your personal grievances with games.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That you've played all of 5 minutes of.
You played all of 5 minutes of, and you can't appreciate, no matter what. I think that Days Gone, it's a really interesting concept, and it's a concept that we haven't seen anything similar to in a while. Maybe Left 4 Dead, but this is just a single-player experience. It's kind of like, I guess, Dead Island in a sense, but Dead Island's a first-person thing. Dead Island got canceled too, didn't it? They never made Dead Island 2?
They never made Dead Island 2, which is... I think they're kind of still in limbo about that. I think they're still talking, but I don't know 100%. I wouldn't compare it... I don't think I'd compare it to Dead Island anyway. Dead Island is more like... I don't know if you played Dying Light or not.
Dying Light. Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's an experience all in its own. Days Gone is, and I guess we won't get to experience anything like it in the near future unless Ben Studio gets they get someone else to produce the game for them and publish it. And it won't be Days Gone 2, but it might be something else. Who knows? Now, I think it's whack when devs never get to make the sequel to games, and then when they get to make another game, it's nothing like the game that they were intending to make the sequel of. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, well, why can't you guys just scum people? Just scum them and just, make the sequel, but call the character a different name that's very similar.
Right.
What's the name of the main character in Days Gone?
Oh shit! It's like Deacon, right? I think it is. Yeah.
Deacon.
Yeah.
Okay, why can't they make something called Jay's Gone and the main character is Beacon with a B? You know, like why is that never? Why is that like almost never done in the gaming industry? It's like
That's some
it's
shit that
not
I would
based on-
do if I'm being completely honest with you. You know what I
I
mean?
would too.
But no, and see, I will say, the game is free. Go ahead and download it. Like they will look at those numbers. It's said that they won't get paid off of it, but I mean, if they see that the game is popular, uh, maybe Sony will be like, okay, well, instead of remaking fucking The Last of Us for no reason, let's go ahead and do this. And from what I know, it's gonna get released here on Steam soon, so hopefully people pick it up on Steam. That I mean, people like playing shit on PC, so shit, get to it. But
Jesus.
that's why I
Anyway,
got that water.
anyway, like I said before, man, I don't think that there's like no reason to make Last of Us remake.
Okay. So now that we're talking about it, why do you think that it's okay for them to not do the DLC for The Last of Us Part 2, but you want a remake with the DLC included for The Last of Us Part 1?
I'm sorry, what? Could you say that one more time?
Yeah. You think that it's okay for them to have canceled the DLC for Part 2, but you want them to remake Part 1 with the DLC?
Okay,
why don't they just fucking do the DLC?
I see what you're saying. Like the way you phrased it confused me a bit, but I understand loud and clear. And that was, but so Last of Us Part 2 is a long ass game, and it is filled with a bunch of content. I just tweeted out. Did I tweet out or did I think it? It takes like 4 days for like an adult with like a reasonable amount of responsibilities, or maybe even 5 days. Like in quarantine, I think I beat that game in like 5 days. You know, it's a long ass game. And if you go through New Game Plus, if you're a teenager with a reasonable amount of like things to do, like you got responsibilities, like you might have to go to work for like 3 or 4 hours. You might have to do some homework. As an adult, you might have to like go to work, might have to take care of some kids. It might take 4 days to get through New Game Plus without like looking for shit like you would in the original game. So that game is filled with content. And I personally was not a huge fan of the. I don't even remember what the multiplayer is called. Last of Us Part 1. If I could be frank with you, it's like called Factions, I think, right? Yeah. That was in a period where I thought that just seemed like a bit much in a game like that. Like in Tomb Raider 2013, I believe it was, the original reboot. Yeah. I thought that the multiplayer in there was like kind of like whatever. Like it feels subpar. It feels like you're playing like a nerf version of the main game.
Right.
And I can deal with that not being in Last of Us Part 2 because I already don't think the controls in that game are perfect to me. I don't think that there's a lot of gameplay elements that were necessarily perfected in Last of Us Part 2. There were some things that were added to Part 2 that were interesting and I feel like could be sharpened a bit, but that's just my personal preference. I don't think the game is bad by any means. I'd probably give that game I'd probably give it an 8, probably 8.5, just by, I'll have to think about it on the top of my head. I like the story, etc., but we're not here talking about that. Last of Us Part 1, I'm going to move on to that. So Last of Us Part 1 has like little to no exposition on characters that we meet several times in the game. You meet characters that you don't know anything about, or at least Joel will talk to them like he's known them for years. And there's just no, for me, like when we lost Tess, I'm not saying spoiler alert. By the way, Drew criticized me on that. I'm not saying spoiler alert because the game's like 8 years old.
I was gonna
You
say
know,
if the game is more than like a year and a half years old, Jesus Christ, a year and a half old, I'm not doing a spoiler alert. If you haven't played it by now, that's just tough. If the game is more than like 2 or 3 years old and you haven't played it by now, then you're not gonna play it.
Right. I'm not gonna be as coarse as you. I'll just say sorry, but you know that's all I'll give you. But the game is 8 years old, and Tess died, and you don't feel an emotional connection to Tess as much as like, or at least I didn't, because I don't know what Tess is about. I don't know what she is to Joel. I just know that she's a woman that he smuggles with. We don't know much about Joel's smuggling history. Maybe that's something they could shed light on. We don't know why Tommy and Joel had a falling out. Joel is dead, and I should have put spoiler alert on that. Spoiler alert: Joel is dead on Last of Us Part 2, and we just never know why they had a falling out. We just know that Tommy didn't like the way Joel did things. I'll chalk it up to, they could have made a prequel game for Last of Us Part 2, or Last of Us Part 1, more rather. But, certain elements I feel like they could just work into Last of Us Part 1 so we know more about these characters that are just sort of, dying or going away. Bill helped Joel fix the car. I want to know what favor he owed Joel. How did Joel do Bill a favor? And it seemed like something that they would have given us some exposition on. Even if you go back and play Last of Us Part 1, Joel is adamant about Bill owing him a favor. And I think in a remake, yeah, we can see why Bill owed Joel a favor. Last of Us Part 1 could be the same length as Part 2 if they give us the story exposition on these characters like they originally meant to, because they wanted to make DLC for characters so you knew more about them, which I think is kind of like, why would you even do the DLC now when they're dead? That's how I felt about it when I heard about that back when Last of Us Part 1 was a popular topic. But now it's like, okay, if they're gonna do a remake, yeah, I want to see all that shit. Just like in Final Fantasy VII remake, yeah, I want to see why Yuffie was around Midgar, because it doesn't really make sense to me. Because you're the one that told me that she was around Midgar when I started playing 7 again a couple years ago, and I didn't know that.
Right.
Because I thought, man, maybe it makes more sense for her to be around Gungaga with the huge materia and everything.
Right.
But now that remake is coming out, came out, and Integrate is coming out, they're giving Yuffie a reason to be there. They're giving Deep Ground more of a story than they had in Dirge of Cerberus, not Dirge of Cerberus, in the original game.
Right.
And I'm here for it. And that's kind of like what I want from Last of Us Part 1. Not only that, but gameplay. Like, I want to see Joel, I want to see him go into prone in some areas. I want to see him do, new stealth techniques, new takedowns, because Joel was for all intents and purposes, I believe that he was a better survivor-type character than Ellie was. And he was kind of like the best of both worlds. He was like Abby and Ellie. He did stealth shit, and he can knock a motherfucker on their ass. And I want to see what they do with him and what they do with Ellie in Last of Us Part 1 remake, or even if they let you play with Tess, So that's why I don't feel so negatively about a remake, and it's also why I don't care about the DLC not being in Part 2, because it's factions, man. It's a nerf version of the regular game. But I'll let you respond, because I've been talking too much.
Nah, you're good. I feel like that's still stuff that they could have done in Part 2. Like you said, the game is already super long, but how many hours do we have in 7 Remake? If you want to make the game longer, then fucking go ahead, as far as I'm concerned. But that's all stuff, like I've said before, this is something that they could have had, with a story time with him and Ellie, or as he's sitting there getting his brains beat out. he's having a flashback or some shit, you know, or a
That
series
sounds,
of flashbacks.
man, that
But
sounds horrible to me. But I mean, if that's what you want,
I mean, I'm just
you know.
that's what it could have been, you know, like it. I like I don't understand why that wouldn't have worked, but it.
I mean, it would have worked to some degree, but it's like that's the last thing you think of is like this, because I don't think it would have been like a flash of, like I don't think when you're getting beat up, you think about like the last that one time you were on a journey for 2 weeks with Tess, and the whole week goes by within like 2 hits of a golf club. You know what I mean? Like that's why I don't think that.
Well, I mean, obviously he doesn't have to be like actively getting beat up. He could just be sitting there like just before or whatever. I
Like
mean,
he's smiling when he gets his first kiss from Tess,
yes.
or whatever the fuck it is, and while he's getting beat up. Like you see what I'm saying? Like I mean, go ahead, man.
No, I mean, like I'm just saying, like him and Tommy are both there in what is it's like a fucking hunting lodge or some shit, right? Maybe they're waiting on Abby to end the crew to do whatever the fuck, and they're just talking about shit. Like that could be like a whole nother chapter of stories, we'll call it. Or that's kind of a weird way to put it, not a chapter, but like that could be the theme that all of the DLC is set around.
Mm-hmm.
But and let me ask you this, concerning Final Fantasy 15 and its DLC and all that. If they were to remake 15 and do it the way that you're wanting them to do The Last of Us Part 1, would you buy that again?
If they redo the gameplay and everything, and they give me all the story elements from the get go, yes, I will buy Final Fantasy 15 from the start. If they promise me that they're giving me the full shit that's out right now, and maybe add a couple new things in, and then they change the gameplay to the point where, I think it's something that's actually fun, like something more similar to 7 Remake, and magic doesn't fuck with you. Like, if you're granting me that wish, then yeah, I would buy Final Fantasy 15, and I might enjoy it more because I don't like how in Final Fantasy 15 you have to consume so many different sorts of media in order to get the full story down. And vanilla Final Fantasy 15 was just, oh man, like there's so much that I just don't understand.
Yeah.
I don't understand X, Y, or Z. I don't understand why Noctis had to. Well, I guess I understand why he had to die. I don't understand why the fucking fire hurts you. That pisses me off to this day. I don't like the ring that you get that does like no damage whatsoever. The fucking soul ring, I thought that was like whack. But
all it does is cast death. It's not that it does damage, it's just a timer on the spell death. That's all it does.
Well, you remember more better than I do because you played it more for sure. But yeah, I believe you on that. But yeah, I don't see anything wrong with getting a game that's been reworked. Like, I see what you're saying about how they could do DLC for Part 2. But I think Part 2 is all about what happened at the end of Part 1 and what it means for Ellie and Abby in the game. So it's like, I don't think that's their game necessarily. But Last of Us Part 1, we start with Joel and his daughter. So the game, it's safe to say the game is about Joel. It's a journey for Joel, and maybe they highlighted just one part of his journey, but if they give us all the other parts of his journey, maybe that'll give us more of a reason to hate Abby in Part 2. Who the fuck knows? I don't know. Because I you know me, I dislike Abby, but I began to think, what is Joel to me, and why do I like him so much?
Right.
Like, I like him because he whooped ass, but other than that, I don't know that much about Joel besides he has emotional issues.
Right.
Old man Logan type shit.
I still think that they could have done that in part 2. You know, and that would have fixed everybody's problem of, oh, I want to play more as Joel. You know, but
Well, I'm not gonna disagree with you there. It would have, but as things are, I don't think that they want part 2 to be about Joel at all. And I think that, to be honest, it's kind of shrewd because it's kind of a funny way that they could just be like, well, just fucking buy this game then, assholes. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, that's the feeling I get. Like, this game isn't about that, but if you want more Joel, then fucking take more Joel right here. And Last of Us Remastered, or not remastered, remake. Your buddy Garth. I don't see why they would do that. It's messing with the formula, the near perfect controls. Just trying to be a contrarian, not making any sense.
I don't think he said that the controls are perfect. I think he said the same thing you said. Like they're.
I'm just being
not
facetious.
Quite perfect, but yeah. I mean,
he said why mess with the formula, and like I mentioned with Corey, Metal Gear Solid, the remake of it, Twin Snakes, came out not too long after Metal Gear Solid, and the remake of RE came out not too long within less of a time frame than Last of Us remake may come out in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is completely something new in gaming, and I just don't think that I see that much wrong with it personally. But you guys are sourpusses and you hate Sony, so
I don't hate Sony. I just
you hate so much.
They're putting resources into a game that they don't need to put resources into. It's fucking stupid. It is stupid.
Based on what?
Based on the fact that they could have done.
They don't need to put. Based on your opinion that they could have put this on part 2, and I can kind of like. I'm not saying your opinion is yours alone. There's probably a lot of people that think like you. As a matter of fact, I think there is like 100%. But for every one of you, I feel like there's either one or two of me that's just going like, you can think that way, but it could just as easily go the other way. Like, it doesn't even matter.
If there's one or two of you that think like that, it's because like one and a half of them literally just want to play part 1 because their white savior is in there. Their white kidnapping savior. Like that's
fair point. But you say it like you just don't fucking like Joel at all either. Like you're not curious about like anything.
And that's not the case. I'd like to see that DLC for sure, but it would have made more sense while they were planning DLC for part 2 for them to have just fucking put the DLC in part 2. Instead of remaking Joel. An entire game, it would have just made more sense. Not a game about
Joel. They made that painfully obvious within the entire game.
And that's I get that. But
it's funny you mentioned that their white savior is they want remake because of the white savior thing, but then you bring up part 2 and you want to put the white savior in the game that people feel like is too political. Yep. It's like, okay, you're trying to give them their cake too, but you're just giving it a different way.
But let me say this. Like it would have made a lot of sense for them to put it in part 1 when they were planning the DLC for part 1. I'm not saying that at all. Obviously, that's when we should have gotten that DLC. But since that fucking train is gone, and part 2 is here, and they were planning DLC, and that's probably the DLC that they were planning, that alongside of whatever multiplayer bullshit, it would have made sense for them to go that route with part 2.
I mean, I guess, but I could say the same thing. I could be like, well, in Final Fantasy VII, Square Enix could have just made another disc, like going over like everything in Midgard, so we wouldn't have to have remake today. Like, that's what I get out of this conversation is they could have just did something else and they didn't do it. So
they could have put a lot more work into the original 7.
They're burning resources.
They could have put a lot more work into original 7, but original 7
came out on PS1. They were under. They literally ran out of space we barely got Vincent. We barely got Vincent and we barely got Yuffie.
Exactly.
I don't think a lot more could have been done at the time. But
exactly. That sounds like it came out on PS1.
So, besides adding another disc, making it a 4-disc game. But I don't know, man. Like, it just seems we're just at an impasse. I don't believe that they're burning resources by doing this. Like, they're just making another fucking game.
They're literally canceling other games, and other devs are saying "fuck you" to Sony because
what games did they cancel besides Days Gone?
Days Gone 2. Oh shit, you want a list?
So Days Gone 2.
No. Let me get you a list because
I'm just playing a game, dude. Days Gone 2. And while you're getting that list, I just want to say a couple of things about that. So, like I said, this is something that it seems like Japanese publishers feel very strongly about. I'm not trying to pigeonhole. Shut up. I'm not trying to pigeonhole every Japanese publisher because that would be racist. I don't think every Japanese publisher is like this, but some of the Japanese publishers that I know, not personally, but that I grew up playing the games of, they are like that. It's unfortunate, and I don't agree with that business decision whatsoever, but the game didn't sell as much as they wanted it to sell, so that's just them. It sucks, but that's why I say it's a double-edged sword, because if the game was never going to sell that well to begin with, like, that's just how business works. What are the sales for Days Gone, actually? That's a good question.
That is a good question. I'll have to check on that here in a minute. I've actually looked that up earlier, but I forgot.
You do what you're doing. I'm going to check on that. On sales. Solace. Okay, in first 3 days, it sold 114,000. I don't think that's bad. I don't know about...
Like you said, they sold good. They just didn't sell what they were expecting, which I don't know what they were expecting, but I mean, I think they sold well enough for a sequel.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm kind of seeing, and I don't understand that. That's a little weird, because I'm seeing Reddit, and it's like, I don't know if I believe everything on Reddit, because it says that they have 5.5 million total players. That doesn't sound right. But this was a Reddit post as of last April. What? There's no way there could have been 5.5 million players unless it was rented, right? Because if it sold that much within a year, then that's definitely a success. I don't think that's right.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that I would have gone to Reddit. Not for
That's just one of the first things that pops up.
Yeah. And I don't know, Reddit can be chaotic.
Average critic review 6.7. Average community rating 8.2. What are the sales? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Of course, it's like this. I had to go to desktop site. Maybe. I don't know, but I don't think people would cancel a game that sells well. It just doesn't make any sense. So
Gravity Rush 3 is... Oh, my bad. Go ahead. My bad.
I'm just assuming that there was a reason to cancel it, because I don't know why you guys think that Sony just cancels shit that's successful. That doesn't make any sense to me.
They are, though.
Like what? Well, you said Gravity Rush 3? Gravity Rush wasn't that successful of a game.
Gravity Rush 1 and 2 are both like cult classics.
For keyword there, cult, meaning that there's a couple of people that like them, not a full classic.
There's enough people that are upset that they're not making a 3 and they're doing Last of Us Part 1 again.
How do you quantify that?
The fact that it's being... Well, I'll have to send you these articles.
Because what is it? I think it's Japan Studio that makes that, if I'm not mistaken. And Japan Studio is just... They didn't want to be absorbed. I get that. Because they're about to be absorbed in the Naughty Dog North, but... Like I said, man, Gravity Rush 1 wasn't even like met with sparkling praise. Like that, it's a cult classic, but I played it. That game isn't that good. If we're talking about Gravity Rush 1. Now 2, you know, that's a good thing to bring up too. Like both of those games started out on the Vita and then eventually made it to, what was it, PS3 and PS4, or was it just PS4? But both those games...
I think 4, just 4.
Just 4? Okay. So both those games were on Vita, which was a catastrophic failure. Almost as bad as the Wii U.
That was another... I don't think those systems were bad, but that's another thing that we were talking about. You know, like, the devs didn't get enough support for them.
No, they didn't. They didn't give enough support for them, and there wasn't enough, like, small devs to take up the mantle, like on PSP. On PSP... some like smaller devs would take on the task of developing games that were traditionally developed by other companies, which used to be really common back in the NES and Sega days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Jack and Daxter. Jack and Daxter Lost Frontier? That was a game that was made on the PSP. And then later ported to PS2, I believe. That wasn't made by Naughty Dog. And it didn't do too well, but, you know, that happens. I forgot where I was going with that. Anyway, the Vita wasn't very well supported. Oh, yeah, the Vita, they didn't, I feel like they didn't do a lot of what they did with the PSP there. The Vita wasn't very well supported, and it wasn't a big success as much as the PSP was, at least. And games that were on there sort of died, like Muramasa Rebirth. That's a good game on the Vita. It's also on the PlayStation TV. But there are other games on the Vita, like Persona 4 Golden, that recently got ported. And Final Fantasy 7 Duodecim, not 7. Final Fantasy Duodecim 7 is just on my brain every podcast. Like a lot of those games are on there and they just sort of died. Final Fantasy Dissidia, it got a sequel on PS4, but not many people played it like that. But yeah, the Vita, I say all that to say the Vita did not succeed very well. So it's like with that game console, that little portable game console not succeeding very well, how do you think Gravity Rush did when that system didn't do too well? And then it got ported to PS4. I got Gravity Rush 1 and 2. 1 is trash. 2 is, I never even played enough of it because I wasn't having that much fun. Like, take that however you will. A lot of people say I got sour tasting games. I didn't think I was having that much of a good time. I didn't make it that far into it either. So when you say Gravity Rush 3, I'm just like, Gravity Rush wasn't even that popular. Even if 2 got better reviews, I don't think that studio ever recovered from using as many resources as they did to make the game. So yeah, I think they canceled Gravity Rush within a decent enough reason. Having a cult classic, I don't think is a good enough excuse for some developers. Like, there was a bunch of people, like, where were you motherfuckers when they canceled, what was that one, the Xbox game that people keep making art for, even though it got canceled? Platinum Games was supposed to make it.
The Dragon.
Dragon.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. And that's a good point. I don't know what happened there. Everybody, well, and that's not to say that they weren't there. People were definitely upset about it being canceled.
People were upset, but they weren't loud enough.
Yeah.
Like, it was more everybody else laughing
yeah.
about it than anything, which was which is sad. I like if I can turn back.
Everybody gave it like the Trump reaction. You know, like Trump announced that he was going to run for president, and everybody they reacted the wrong way.
Yeah, well, I mean, the climate at the time was PlayStation has more exclusives, and so does Nintendo. So like when they lost the one, they canceled the one for I don't know what reason to this day. They canceled that before it even came out.
And everybody just laughed. They were like, "Oh, it looks like Sony and Nintendo still win." Yeah. So that wasn't the way to react to that.
If I could go back in time, you know, I would advise people not to do that. I would say, you know, just give them a little bit of support. But who knows, man? I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
But you got your list up. I'm running out of talking to you.
I'm not gonna lie, buddy. Like you were talking and I was getting distracted. I couldn't pay attention to either, so I put the phone down.
He was looking up at the spider webs on the ceiling.
I was. But no, they're focusing on their blockbuster games like The Last of Us and God of War.
Last of Us, God of War, probably Final Fantasy, Project Athia. I don't know how much Deathloop is going to have to do with it because of Bethesda, but Returnal.
And then too, you know, like that's. I'm hoping you didn't hear that car alarm in the background, but I think too, like that's the reason why and how Microsoft is going around and buying developers like Bethesda and who is that did Hellblade? Yeah, Ninja Theory. You know, Sony. I don't know what Sony's doing. I don't want to say that they can't afford those devs because I don't believe that, like even myself. And you know, Microsoft, they've got way more money than Sony does. I don't know how they've managed that because they've got a lot of
just
hands and a lot of different things, you know. So I guess, you know, like just they don't have a lot of, not that they don't have a lot of money into video games, but they don't have as much in the gaming as Microsoft does. But I think Microsoft is making more promises to devs than Sony is. Like I said, Sony's they're focusing on their air quotes, their main, like I said, their blockbuster games.
Back in the PS4 and Xbox One gen, there was an article, and I don't remember who made the article, but they were saying, I think it was like a salty, either it was an Xbox fan or it was Microsoft. I don't remember what it was, but they were explaining why Sony was getting so many exclusives, and they were saying that they're paying them to get those exclusives, which is like obvious. But the way they said it was like it was mudslinging. Like they're only getting so many because they're paying for it. It's like, well, yeah, that's what
you're supposed to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and now it's like, of course, Microsoft makes more money, man. They have an operating system that people are required to have to play games, so it doesn't say activate Windows like it does when you're fucking like it does when you're a fucking PC. But even though you got Windows twice somehow.
Oh, but, man.
I know.
It's still there too. Like it doesn't show up on my TV, thank God, but it's still like on my monitor. I don't know what the fuck I did wrong.
You should that would make me not be a Microsoft fan, but for you, that's like, man, that's a heaven. That's a heyday for you. You're like, yes, I love seeing. Please activate Microsoft Windows.
I mean, I don't technically have to see it because I game from my TV, not my computer monitor. So.
Oh man, cheating. But yeah, dude. Damn. I'm sorry. I'm getting a little sidetracked.
Yeah.
So we were talking about what Sony's doing, and it seems like Sony is they're trying to combine studios, and I can only assume they want to combine the studios just because it takes a lot of money. Like I don't know how studios work. I don't know if they go to the same fucking place and like chill, or if they got their own buildings or whatever. But it seems like in my head they want them all in the same building, or at least in similar buildings, depending on what they're doing, so they could trim the fat, I guess, and not have to pay for many things, resources.
Right. I think it's like like Bethesda. Like they're one big studio, and then like you've got different teams that are working on different IPs and stuff. Like Fallout. I almost said fucking Legend of Zelda. What is it? Fucking what series is Skyrim?
I'm sorry, Elder Scrolls.
Yeah, Elder Scrolls. You've got, like I said, Fallout. I think those different teams take up different parts of the building, but I think like I said, like different studios, they all have their own building, obviously. Now, shit, and I'm out of water.
Oh man, I hope you don't die.
Nah, I think I'll be good. Sony buying up studios or whatever, or wanting to combine them, rather, like you said. I don't
know what it could be whack, like you're saying, man. It could be. I don't know.
I don't know why they would want to do that, other than the fact that like it means more people in the studio. Like you get more people on whatever team to work on whatever IP. But I don't think that they need to do that. I don't. It seems like they would be slowing themselves down. They could be working on multiple different IPs rather than just one.
Well, and I don't even think that they're just working on just one, because, I mean, like they want to absorb one team into Naughty Dog, but they're not putting Santa Monica Studios into Naughty Dog. You know what I mean? Like, I know they're focusing on their blockbuster hits, but if you really think about it, that's a moneymaker. Like, if I had a choice, I probably, like, I don't know anything about the business really. If I had a choice, I'd probably put out my most profitable stuff, and I want my most profitable studios to get with my smaller studios, and maybe either give them some sort of like direction or advice on how they're developing a game. I don't know, but like I said, everybody hates it. They hate that this is happening, but I don't know what to think of it just yet, because I don't know what the implications could mean for them to like just combine a studio. To me, in my head, it's just like, just combine the fucking studio. I don't think anything. I don't have any malice about it, but maybe my biasness is clouding my judgment. I just don't see anything that says, "Oh, well, this is a terrible thing to do." Because even the smaller games, there's always going to be smaller games, and they're always going to come to all the systems. Some of them will be exclusive to certain systems, like. Some of them are just going to be for everything, like that platformer I told you about, Kaze. That shit is on PC. It's on, I assume Xbox. I hope it's on Xbox, for fuck's sake,
Right.
And it's also on, I think it's on the Switch.
Could be, yeah. I think I do remember seeing it in the store, actually.
Yeah, so like the smaller titles that end up being pretty good, I just don't foresee them going away entirely, and I think that's what everybody's fear is. But I don't know how to call their fear.
Or not. I don't think it's happening yet, but I think the studios, like they don't want to be absorbed. And again, I don't think they need to be absorbed. If Sony wants to focus on their on their blockbusters, that's fine. Give them the resources and give them the time. Don't contribute to crunch, but also don't force these smaller devs that have their own projects that they want to work on into the bigger studios to focus on God of War or The Last of Us or Final Fantasy, which I mean, obviously that's not a Sony exclusive dev, but you know what I mean. But let people work on the games that they want to work on, and I think that's the issue here. Is the smaller devs want to work on their shit. That's why Microsoft ended up buying Ninja Theory, because they wanted to work on Hellblade, and I think Sony.
You know, 1 second, Josh.
Yeah, I'll pause. But uh dang, I lost my train of thought that quick. But no, you know, like I'm nobody who knows me knows that I'm trying to actually develop my own piece of shit game. So for Sony to come at me, you know, especially like with me just being me, or like any small dev team, you know, like we're Wukong, or there was another one that was coming out. I think it is out now. Bright Memory. It was made by like one person, and it's a multi-platform.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was made by one person originally. I don't know if it still is, but Wukong is definitely it's not one person, but it's a super small team. There's a couple more, and I can't remember of them right now, but we'll come back to that another time, I guess. But for Sony to tell those teams, you know, like, hey, we're going to combine you with another studio to help them work on that, that's bullshit. I would 100% leave, especially if Microsoft came up, you know, like, hey, we'll pay you to work on your shit. You know, like, hey, that's a no-brainer.
Well, the way you're describing it, it makes it sound like, you know, they have to, do one thing, and that's it. Like, the way I see it is, if they go into a larger studio, but they still have their sub studios, because they could be a subsidiary, they could still make the games they want to make, but they also would, I would assume, have to help do certain things to get games put out quicker. And that makes a lot of sense to me, because, okay, I don't want to have to wait 10 years for Last of Us Part 3. I'd much rather wait 8 and the game still come out polished, or even 7 and the game still comes out polished. And if you guys have your game that you're trying to do too, I would assume that's just a bigger studio for you to work with. You know, Arcane Studios is a subsidiary of Bethesda, and they still make what they want to make, and I'm assuming that they have some input or help that they add to other games. Atlas is a subsidiary of Sega. I don't think they have to stop and make Sonic. You know, they still get to make their Persona, Shin Megami Tensei games, etc., etc.
They have to make Sonic games first. You know what I mean? Like, I get what you're saying. Like, my situation. My bad.
I didn't catch what you said. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, like, they have to make those Sonic games first. You know, like, what's the last Sega game in general that you've heard of?
Yakuza 7.
That wasn't a Persona or like
Yakuza 7.
I'm sorry.
Yakuza 7.
Okay. And see,
no,
because see, like, and like I'm getting ready to say too, you know, like, number one, I keep forgetting that A, Yakuza is a part of Sega. B, like, this isn't the first time that you've had to tell me that Atlas is a part of Sega. I keep forgetting because Atlas, for being a subsidiary, they're big enough where I feel like if they wanted to branch out on their own and just make Persona games, they could definitely do that. You know,
I don't think it's a thing of that. I think they literally are just owned by Sega. Like, it's been a thing since, I think, it must have been the 80s or 90s. I don't know. But you're right. I think they could do it by themselves. But, you know, still they are a part of Sega. Vanillaware, I think, might be a subsidiary of Sega. They made Dragon's Crown and what's it called? Blue Sphere. I don't know what it's called, but Odin Sphere maybe. I think that's what
Yeah,
it's called.
yeah.
Um, yeah, they work with Sega quite often. Uh, Sega owns quite a few studios. I think that new Shenmue game, Shenmue 3, I think it was produced and published by Sega. Grand Blue Fantasy Versus was published by Sega, at least in Hong Kong. I don't know about the US.
Right.
But please continue. I rudely interrupted. My bad.
No, you're good. My point is, you know, being brought in as a subsidiary is probably, aside from being frustrating for those smaller devs, it's probably scary as fuck. Because what if, like they get used or whatever to make the blockbuster games, whatever. They're asking for help for their games. They don't get it, and or they get shut down after the fact because it's funds that Sony or even Microsoft, because Microsoft is fucking notorious for closing down studios. But like Sony, they're getting their profits now, and there's in their eyes there's no need for this fucking 15-20 man team to be a part of their team anymore. You know what I mean? So now this dev studio, they're back to square one, making their shit. Or even worse yet, everybody's pissed off because they've been bamboozled, and everybody just decides they don't want to work on the game anymore. So now we've just lost out on a brand new IP that could have been doper than shit. Could have been another blockbuster. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
I see where you're coming from.
I don't know.
I see where you're coming from, and I'm not gonna try and say it's wrong, but just playing devil's advocate here, I just don't know that many experiences where Sony has done something of that, where they would just keep a studio under wraps. Like, that's something Konami does. You know what I mean?
Right.
Konami is the studio that they keep things, like they bought Hudson, or was it Hudson Soft, or was it? Nah, yeah, it was Hudson Soft. Hudson Soft, and they have the rights to so many games, and they're only doing mobile games right now for the most part. And that's something Konami does, and I think that Sony knows better. For all the negative publicity that they get from people that either don't understand the vision or maybe even rightfully so. Like, some people, for all the negative publicity they get, I feel like I don't see many people I don't think Naughty Dog complains about Sony, and I don't think Santa Monica Studios does. And they're some of their best and top studios. So, I mean, I don't know that many studios that they own that are just unhappy. But maybe I'm not looking into it enough. Who knows? Do you know? Because I'm not.
I know that, hell, even with this The Last of Us remake, the reason why they canceled the DLC for Part 2, they secretly put in a bunch of resources to another team, and they gave it some kind of weird ass name. It's like something with an X. I don't remember, but secretly, not so secretly now, it was the Part 1 remake, and they never gave that dev team a name, or I have to look at that. Like I said, I'll send you that article later. They talk about it, or maybe I have it pulled up right here. They're being sketchy as shit about the whole thing, and I think they knew, they were gonna get some backlash on it. And again, this is just my opinion. Like you said, there's going to be people who agree with me. Obviously, there are people who agree with me. I think that is deserved. To me, it just doesn't make sense. They're putting resources into a full blown remake when they didn't have to. But that's just me. But
Yeah, like I said, man, like you say they didn't have to, but nobody has to do anything. So it's like it's meaningless. They don't have to make a Last of Us Part 3. Naughty Dog doesn't have to make another game. They could stop. Anything can be meaningless if you give the connotation of they're doing something that is different from nothing. You know what I mean? Like that's the way I see it. You know, um, if they put resources into another team for making Last of Us remake, I think that's their prerogative. Like I told Corey, nobody bat an eye when they were making Resident Evil remake on GameCube. Nobody bat an eye for Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes, which Twin Snakes is still super expensive on eBay. Nobody bat an eye when those games came out.
Yeah, I've got the article, and there's a lot to read. So, but let me go ahead and get it on the pod. And this is from the actual Bloomberg article. Michael Mumbauer, who took over direction of Visual Art Service Group in 2007, recruited a group of about 30 developers internally and from neighboring game studios to form a new development unit within Sony. The idea was to expand upon some of the company's most successful franchises, and the team began working on a remake of the 2013 hit The Last of Us for PlayStation 5. And it doesn't say what the name of... It doesn't mention right here that it was under a different covert name or none of that, but that's besides the point. To continue, but Sony never fully acknowledged the team's existence or gave them the funding and support needed to succeed in the highly competitive video game market, according to the people involved.
They never gave who the... I'm sorry, could you repeat that because I'm playing? They never gave...
The developers that they hired to originally do the remake for The Last of Us, which is like a team of 30 people. Says the studio never even got its own name. Instead, Sony moved ownership of The Last of Us remake to its original creator, Naughty Dog, a Sony-owned studio behind many of the company's best-selling games and an HBO television series in development. So, when you're saying that they're going to absorb other people to work on those titles, and you read about stuff like that, it's just kind of like, okay, well, what happens if they do that again? And what was the point of doing it the first time?
It sounds like to me that this studio that was never given the proper resources, which that blows, by the way. Sony should do better about that. If they didn't get the proper... It doesn't sound like they were an established studio. It just sounds like they were some people who were hired and didn't have a studio name, and they didn't give them the proper resources to make Last of Us Remake, which doesn't make sense to me. But I don't know if they would do that to another well-known studio. It makes me wonder what exactly is happening with other studios, if that's the case. But I don't know if they would do that to another well-known studio that's coming to help out. Like, it seems like they wanted a studio that was underneath them to remake a game for them, which, of course, that's what you want to do. I mean, you don't go and get employed and then, just not do something that your boss asks you to do when it's in your contract to do it. But they weren't getting the proper resources. So that sucks. I keep going back to that because it's like, I don't understand why they wouldn't do that. And it just doesn't seem like Sony to half-ass something like that, because Demon's Souls remake is pretty phenomenal, and Blue Point Studios did that. The Blue Point Studios is, I don't know, I'm not as familiar with their work as I should be. They made the remake for Shadow of Colossus on PS4, and they also made, Demon's Souls remake. So, I would assume they would have somebody like Blue Point Studios doing that for them if they were going to have a studio at all do it. because they did so well with Demon Souls. Still one of the best-selling games on PS5, you see.
Right.
So I don't know what's going on there. You just told me, but I feel like there's a side of the story that I'm missing, because that just seems, this unnamed studio, like, what resources weren't they getting, and like, why couldn't they get it? Because that just seems like a layup, you know. If Sony's going to absorb somebody into Naughty Dog or have somebody work on their games, it seems like that would be a contract that they would have, and I don't know. It seems like it just seems, the whole situation seems fishy to me. It seems like there's a lot of stuff I'm not getting told, but I'm getting the worst of it told about Sony. You know, because I mean, because while you were talking, I wanted to say something about Nintendo, because I don't know how Nintendo Studios really work. Like, that's a mystery to me, because I don't bother with a lot of their titles. But, you know, in the midst of the Wii U, I'm sure there was a team making, what was it? Super Mario 3D World when the Wii U came out. Then there was Super Mario Brothers Wii U. There's several Mario games coming out at a time, and I don't know if they're all getting their resources, because Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, I was told that game blew, you know, and I don't know if they did or didn't,
like,
but
I've tried playing them before, and I don't. And again, this is just me, but I don't. And sports games in general, I don't get I don't get the appeal behind them, but you know,
I get the appeal behind certain ones of them. Like, I like Super Mario Strikers on the GameCube. I like Mario Golf on the GameCube. Mario Tennis on the GameCube was also really good. Like, GameCube was just a good game for me, a good system for me for like Mario games and shit.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So there's a bunch of different studios making Mario games per year. At least there was in the GameCube era, the Wii U era, and the Wii era and the Switch era. Like, we got Mario 3D World remake, or whatever you want to call that, remastered. Somebody was going in and they worked on Super Mario 3D All Stars and gave it very small touch ups. And we got Mario Odyssey, and Mario and Bowser's Fury. All those are different games, and they got Luigi's Mansion 3 within. All these games came out within 3 years, and I don't know if we're ever going to hear from these studios. Like, they might have some NDAs where they can't talk about it, but I don't know if we're ever going to have these studios talk about how they weren't funded properly, or like how they didn't have enough time to do X, Y, or Z, because there's some things in the Super Mario 3D All Stars port that a lot of people, I think, feel like could have been worked on a bit better. Yeah. Like some controls for Mario, the camera for Sunshine. Why does Mario in 64 like there's some differences between Mario 64 and Mario 64 on the DS that could have made it into Mario 3D All Stars, but there's not a mode you can change to. They didn't make Mario Galaxy 2 and the 3D All Stars package. There's so much I could say about that, but I just need to know, like, why is Sony getting focused on for things like this? You hear about it here, but why don't we ever think about that for everybody else? Like, right. And I'm not saying that it never happens, but like, it's weird that Last of Us remake, which seems like to me it would be a decent idea. I know you don't like it, but it seems like it would be a decent idea. But we look at that and we're like, ugh. But we look at Mario 3D All Stars, which is incomplete because it's missing a bunch of All-Star 3D games and options. And we're like, oh, hell yeah, let's get it before it's gone. That's a smart idea. Like, you know what I mean? It just seems really weird. Yeah. So, let's just come out and say it, man. You know I'm Sony biased. I know you hate Sony. It's all right. You know what I'm saying? I can still hug you after you get quarantined and everything. You know what I'm saying? We can hug it out, but you're biased.
I'm like I said, I don't hate Sony. I just And I will say, you know, like I didn't agree with how they handled All Stars, but I was definitely not as mad about it as I am this whole remake thing. Uh,
Mhm.
Jesus Christ.
I know.
Um, Made me forget what I was going with that. But
Hell.
that, you know, like you, I'm definitely more biased, especially towards Microsoft. I feel like than I am Nintendo or Sony. And that, like, it's not to say that I hate either other company. You know, I enjoy games from all three platforms, companies, whatever you want to call it. You know,
Yeah,
I
platforms, yeah.
if there was a platform that I would say that I just disliked, I'd probably say PC. And and is that's only because PC is so expensive to keep up with.
Captives.
You know, like I like games that are on PC. Um, Omori is a great game. You know, I don't know how many people have played that game. It's a great game. I definitely recommend it if you're into um, old style JRPGs. Among Us is great. Undertale is great. Um, Amnesia is a great game. Um, but that's besides the point. You know,
I'm going in.
I
between
think
being lost on where I was going with that and trying to stay on topic,
Nothing.
I
bias. You talking about your bias and how you like to shit on everything that's not Microsoft.
right.
I think that's what you said. I
I
don't know. I
just
got a little lost too, but I think that's what you were saying.
right. No, I hope that whatever Sony is doing does work out for the best for everybody involved. You know, not that I think that Sony is just going to straight up go under from one game, you know, but I'd hate for them to not only them absorb companies to work on a very few
Here.
specific games and then them lose those titles because for whatever reason it doesn't work out. But I don't want them to have sacrificed new IPs trying to do it, if
That's
that
fair.
makes sense.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't know you weren't finished. Go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
that's the end. That's all I got for that.
Yeah. I see where you're coming from. Worry for that type of stuff, like I get it, you
Looks
know,
like I'm clear.
because if anything, we've seen that it looks like it could just happen at the drop of a dime, man. At the drop of a dime, you know, they could just be
And
like,
right, and like I said, you know, Microsoft is notorious for that shit. You know, people. That's what happened with Scalebound is the name of that game. You know,
yeah,
like they bought a studio specifically to work on that game, if that's what I remember right, and just out of nowhere they shut them down. So
yeah. It was yeah, platinum.
yep. And I
Unfortunately,
mean, I don't know that Sony will do that. You know, like I don't know the history with doing studios like that, but I don't I don't want them to follow Microsoft's footsteps in that regard. And again, too, you know, like Corey was saying on that pod that he was on with you the last time, you know, like they've come a long way. So hopefully, you know, those days are behind them in regards to that. But I I just hope that shit.
yeah.
It sucks when it happens, you know, especially with a game like Scalebound and
they'll ring later.
Anthem. You know, like that studios
From your inner desire.
that team
Or a
is
cry
done.
for help.
I would.
You know, like what are they going to do now? I don't know if they've just disbanded altogether or if they're just going to work on something new. But That shit hurt.
Which game was that? I'm sorry.
Anthem.
Which studio? Oh, yeah,
So you
yeah.
were a soldier. You fought for the card.
That game, that studio is. I don't know what's going on with them. Well, I mean, Mass Effect, right?
You can't.
Yeah,
Mass
well,
Effect
and
remake, 'cause
I'm
that's the
speaking
same
more
studio that worked on it.
specifically on the team that developed Anthem, not
war is a crime to someone.
not them as a whole, but
volunteered.
still,
You
you know, like
volunteered
for them
to
to
investigate?
downsize like that, it's
No, I
still
volunteered my confession.
they could have done both.
No
I
sense
feel
wasting
like.
time with investigation. I
Yeah,
was sent to Sunstone Rock
for sure,
2
for
years.
sure.
The trade was fair.
Man, what a pod.
They sent you to a rock for 2 years? Is this some?
Got
kind of
anything else that you wanted to talk about?
No, Sunstone Rock is a prison. South
I
of
don't think
Meridian,
so,
south
man.
of
You
the
know, I
Gathers. Our new son
think
came
the
with
Rona
three
is
limitations.
is starting to
In the
get
heat
to
of
me
a
again,
storm
but
cell in the
no,
dark, I learned to focus
you
on
know, I think that's about it for what I had. You know,
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm pretty much dried up on this too.
acceptable for
So.
him under the circumstances.
well,
Except
thanks for listening, everybody. I think I think this is where we're calling it.
But rules are
Here's an idea for anybody listening. If you've got an idea for anything you would like for us to talk about, leave a comment down below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share to your friends. We appreciate you listening, as always.
I was there.
This is just something out of the blue, but maybe it's something vicious we can talk about. Maybe we'll do a giveaway here in the coming months or so.
That works for
But,
me. I'm not suggesting a corporate
um,
wedding. I'm never lonely where there's
Maybe we'll do Outriders or something. That game is doing very well. I was kind of worried about it because they released on Game Pass, you know, day one for free. I was really worried about it, but apparently they're still selling really well. So congratulations to them. It's a great game. But maybe we'll get a copy of that and we'll do a giveaway for it. But
Yeah, or if we could find, by any chance, 3 All-Stars. So.
yep. But
Yeah, falling for the marketing scheme.
right. But thanks again for watching, everybody. Like, comment, subscribe, and share, and we'll see you next time.
Yep.